Hello, my name is Tristen Delgado, and I'm going to be discussing affirmative action. I'll be talking about what it is and how and why it is immoral. These are the essential questions. Regardless of its legality, is the affirmative action ruling in the case of Abigail Fisher morally correct? To what extent should diversity be a relevant element in university admission policies, and to what extent should a student's heritage be a relevant element in university admission policies? Important terms to consider. Reverse discrimination: the practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups known to have been discriminated against previously. This is otherwise known as positive discrimination. Egalitarianism: a social doctrine that emphasizes the goal of equality among all members of a society, or indeed all humanity. Minority group: a culturally, ethnically, or racially distinct group that coexists with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. Racism: a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Institutional or structural racism: an unequal or the unequal treatment that arises from the way organizations, institutions, and social systems operate. So, what is affirmative action and what are its implications? Affirmative action is a program or policy that promotes equality in education and employment opportunities to traditionally discriminated peoples like women or children. It is used to give equal opportunity for these groups in an attempt to end discrimination in all organizations. It's enforced under the ploy of creating a more egalitarian society. So, what moral theories oppose affirmative action principles? Utilitarian theory. So first off, it's important to point out that the utilitarian theory is used both to defend and oppose affirmative action, as it is a consequentialist ethical theory. Because the utilitarian perspective also considers the opposite of happiness, it makes it relevant. So preferential programs should not be established because such programs compromise the treatment of the majority. So under the utilitarian act or theory, it says that the most amount of happiness promoted amongst the most amount of people should be considered, or should be considered as the most preferable action, because the majority is bigger than the minority. By definition, it should be considered more. So there is more utility when giving equal opportunities to all, while still standardizing acceptance by basing it solely off academic merit. This is both beneficial for the college, students, and the society. Kantian ethics. So, according to Kantian ethics, it is immoral to discriminate against anyone, even if they are the majority, as it is against the categorical imperative to do so. Aristotle's virtue ethics. Discrimination, even to the intent of diversity, is wrong because it does not demonstrate virtuous qualities. The noble intentions of affirmative action still participate in inequality and does not fully endorse racial equity. Therefore, it's still considered wrong. Objections to the affirmative action in education. So first thing, I think that it's morally wrong to have heritage to be a relevant factor in accepting students in a college. I'll get into this more, but first I'm going to present the arguments for and against the matter. So first point, it produces reverse discrimination. So, whilst trying to prevent discrimination through the use of deliberately favoring minority groups, the byproduct is the exclusion of whites or more qualified individuals. Along with the justification of discriminating non-minorities, I think it's really important to point out that once a college demonstrates demonstrates that they um, that they approve of the affirmative action, they're actually demonstrating that it no longer considers academic merit as its most relevant priority. Here's the second most prevalent argument. The students that are enrolled only to balance the demographics sometimes aren't qualified and don't rightfully earn a place in the competitive university in which they enrolled. Basically, with this point, a white person can be denied a spot in a school just because of the color of his skin, or because, yeah, basically. This defeats the entire purpose of the affirmative action since it's not really creating an equal society. Personally, I think that it depreciates the success and the achievements of the racial groups that are getting enrolled justifiably. And the last point is that the notion of leveling the playing field for a group of people denotes the idea that the general population of that specific group absolutely needs this aid. It's sort of a stereotype. So here are the arguments that support affirmative action. It's an effective way to reverse inequality and remedy discrimination. By giving minority groups an advantage to have equal opportunities with the competing groups, it promotes the chance for equal outcome. So with that, the gesture of diversity policies being a way to remedy discrimination, it's agreed that they serve as a sort of the policies. They serve as a sort of compensation for the past years of discrimination of these students' predecessors. For decades, prestigious universities denied entry for the students of color, and these rulings they serve as a way to combat the historical discrimination against colored and ethnic people. So with that, the people who agree with the methodology of affirmative action, they're agreeing that the most morally appropriate form of recompense entails more racial preferencing. Another point is it helps people who come from disadvantaged areas to advance in ways that they otherwise couldn't. This is beneficial. It helps keep students of color remain represented evenly on college campuses, and this is nationally. So banning affirmative action can have the presence of colored and ethnic students decline nearly 23% on all college campuses. They believe that this is integral. This is why it should be. This is another point why it should be integral to leave this rule active, as it serves as some sort of this fabric, as a way to preserve the fabric of diversity. So this is the one of my I'm sorry, excuse me. So one of my central questions was, regardless of its legality, is the affirmative action ruling in the case of Abigail Fisher morally correct? So 23-year-old Abigail Fisher became the face of a Supreme Court case that attempted to end the use of racial considerations in college admissions. She was seen as a symbol for racial victimization because she did everything correct to be qualified as a dedicated student. But the university denied her application only because she was white. The case was not only meant for the college to reconsider their decision, but rather to show, or but also to show America and change the fact that the government accepts the continuous violation of constitutional rights of white Americans when they attempt to help other races have the same opportunities. The case was meant to end affirmative action policies in all uh, college admission considerations. Because I oppose the affirmative action, I think that the outcome of this case was immoral. She actually, yeah, she actually ended up going to the University of Louisiana because she lost this case. Despite its legality, the predilection to preserve opportunity, even if it means discriminating against another group of peoples, is irrefutably wrong. In my opinion, in my opinion, the affirmative action is actually a redundant solution to the problem of discrimination. And I say this only because in order to promote equality, in the gestures of the affirmative action, you have to first, I mean, yeah, you have to first disregard the opportunity of a different group of people. Where was I? Oh, yes. Another thing. The case would have never been presented if she had been a different color. That's significant considering all higher education students fall under the policies that consider race over academic merit if it means preserving a certain demographic. The Constitution is supposed to be colorblind. The regulations and policies that are concerned with upholding affirmative action, evidently, they aren't. Thank you.